Hello, everybody. It is so good to see you, and you can see me too. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the United States and elsewhere that celebrates. Welcome to this No Days studio session that's very impromptu. I've been wanting to go live and have had technical difficulties or things getting in the way, but tonight I was able to get this all situated and set up for you with a project that I've been wanting to share with you for a while. This is actually a project that I shared quite a while ago, way back when, like pre all of this digital video stuff, with the Blogspot blog, the No Days Adhesive Blogspot blog. It is using the No Days Groutless Mosaic Adhesive. This is one of the samples I did, and this is one of the other samples that I did. This is a super quick and easy project. It uses upcycled jar lids. So you've got that material around, some wire. You probably have some wire around of some sort. I've got this little black 24 gauge wire. I've got this soft brass 16 gauge wire that's a little bit thicker. You are gonna want some wire cutters to cut that wire and some sort of pliers. I usually use round nose pliers, but in the basement I've got these kind of needle nosy pliers going on, so that's what I'm gonna be using. Tweezers are handy for this project. And of course, you'll want some No Days Groutless. That's your adhesive and the grout, so you don't have to worry about that. And then little baubles and bits that you're going to be putting in this. So little bits of glass. I love mirror for this project because when you hang this in a tree or you hang it outside or in your window, whenever the breeze catches it, when it moves, you can kind of see that sparkle. And if you could just imagine imagine I have a whole backdrop of them behind me and how sparkly that would be. It would be amazing. Anyway, this is a project that I really love, and the supplies are almost never ending. I mean, totally unlimited. These things, you know, probably handled quite a bit of those today. So No Days Groutless is a heat set adhesive, which means you're going to want some way to heat these pieces. I have this little, I think it's like a coffee warmer or candle, like the Scentsy things or whatever warmer. You need something that's going to get to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, so an oven will work well as well. Oftentimes I'll use a griddle. I've done this in schools before, and we use, I take a griddle, and it's large, so the students can all put their pieces around. And as the adhesive is heat setting, that's when they can go in and kind of start to move their pieces around a little bit. And you'll see that in a bit. But anyway, let's get started, shall we? So I have first eaten a bunch of food. Second, taken the jar lids and washed them, scrubbed them in soap and water, rinsed them out, made sure that they're dry. The next thing that we need to do is put the hanger in the top. We want to put the hanger in first because the wire is going to go into the little bits here, and the wire is going to go into the little holes that we make, and then it actually ends up kind of disappearing underneath the pieces and the rim, so you can't see it at all, really, especially if it's black wire. Like you can kind of see the wires up over here. Let's see if we can't see a little bit closer here. You can kind of see the wires up underneath there if you really look, but a lot of them, you know, the wire is completely buried underneath everything, so there is nothing to see. So we're going to take our jar lid, we're going to take a block of wood, we're going to take a nail, and we're going to take a hammer. So hopefully this doesn't shake my table too much for y'all, but I want to pick the spot that's going to be my top. And because there's little lips here, I like to kind of use that as my top, because if you do end up seeing the hanger, it gets hidden behind that little lip, so you can't necessarily see it. So I want to put, you know, a couple little spots about, maybe a 1/4 inch-ish apart, and I'm going to try and do this so that you guys can see it, but it's really awkward for me to do. So let me see if I can't move myself around so that you can see how easy this really is, right? So I've put my nail in just the corner of the lid, right? And then I'm going to take the hammer and give it a yeah, I've got the hole started there, which is good. All right, so I'm gonna lay it kind of a little bit more sideways, right? Okay, ready? So I don't really hold the lid, I hold the nail, right? Look at that. And then I can pull that out, and that nail is going to be enough space for the wire that I've done. You just want to be aware that when you go through that way, you're going to end up with this little kind of burr. It won't be a big deal because the wire is going to be around it, so it shouldn't be something that's going to catch you at all. But if you're concerned about that, after you put your wire in, you can take a file to it, just a metal file to it, and you can kind of get rid of that. All right, the next hole is going to be, right there. And I'm just kind of guesstimating. It's not something that you have to measure out. The wire, when you bend it in a U, there's a certain shape it just likes to be, right? So there we go. Kind of see how we go. There we go. See? There we go. You see those holes back there? All right, so now we're good to go. We've done the pounding, the loud noises. We can get that out of the way. Move this back here for you in a second. And then we can start with our wire. So with the wire, this is going to be a really lightweight piece. Typically, I probably wouldn't use 24 gauge wire, and maybe I'd twist it, but I don't want to have any troubles getting in those holes. So I think I'm just going to use it as is and see how it holds up. I think it'll be fine. But yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend 24 gauge wire. So we're going to take and cut this, and this I'd say is about, like 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches. That's probably a little longer than you need it to be, but that'll give you a nice long loop, right? We're going to take our pliers here and center them in the wire, and then we're just going to bend down. Right. There we go. So now I've got that wire made. Go in there. You know, that'll probably, I think that'll be enough. All right. So the bigger brass wire works the same way. All right. So now you can kind of see, right? There's my wire. And I'm going to take my pliers again, and I'm going to bend them. I've got these other pliers that work really well because they kind of have this needle nose that's kind of twisted a little bit. And I'm going to use those for a second. So I take this and kind of bend it and push it against the edge and then straighten that out, right? And then if I push it in far enough, I can kind of match it, go in the exact opposite direction. So I'm going to take this, give it a nice 90-degree angle. See, now I've got that, and I can bring in here and pull out like that. And you can see how the wire nests up against the edge there. Now, even if the adhesive doesn't hold that in place, once I use, if I'm using glass, see how the glass is thick enough that it covers that lip? So it's just perfect for this process, right? Okay, so magic part comes next. And I've got just some scraps. The No Days Groutless comes in a square foot roll or a 4-foot roll. And it comes in a 12 inches by 12 inch or 4-foot roll. And then you can cut it down to smaller pieces. You can use scrappy bits clear down to the end of this stuff. In fact, I have a little jar here where I've got all my little scrappy bits at the very bottom. So I just kind of hang on to all of that stuff because I can use it until it's all gone. I'm going to take my No Days Mosaic Adhesive, and I've got an X-Acto here. You could take a pen and trace around the jar lid with the pen to kind of make a mark in there, and then use scissors if you've got kids doing it that are a little bit young to be using an X-Acto blade. But otherwise, you can just take this in here and hit it with your X-Acto blade. It doesn't have to be perfect by any means. The adhesive, in fact, you'll probably put, like a layer or a layer and a half in there. And if that doesn't make sense, don't worry. I'll kind of show you what that means. If it's a little bit off, it's not quite fitting, then you will melt it into place. And that's going to start to happen when I use this hot plate over here. So I've got my adhesive, and If it's sticking really well and it's not moving around much, you can kind of use it like this, but you can kind of see when the light hits it that there's some indentations. So I'm just going to put it on my hot plate and let the adhesive melt. And then after it's melted, if it pulls back in any place, then I can just add a little bit of adhesive in that place. And once it melts, I'm going to go ahead and pull it off of the heating tray and put it on a heat-proof surface. Let it cool down and set up. So the adhesive is going to become really flat, even all over. And you can kind of see it might bubble in a couple of areas. And depending on how close your pieces are together, you might want to put some more adhesive in there. So I'm just going to toss some more in there because my pieces are going to be, they're going to have some space. The Groutless Mosaic Adhesive is designed to come up around the pieces as you push down on them. As you push down on the pieces, the adhesive gets pressed out from underneath and up around the edges. That becomes kind of your visual grout, right? So you don't have to grout because it's already starting to do the biz for you, right? Your glue has become your visual grout. This is why it's such a quick and easy process. This stuff you can put outdoors. I wouldn't expect it to last years and years and years, although I've got pieces outdoors that have been outside for, I'm going on like say 8 to 10 years here in Nebraska. Winter, summer, I just leave, when I make test pieces, I leave them outside to make sure that they're going to stand up in the elements. So I've got some test pieces that have been here since 2010, and the Groutless I think came out around 2010, and it's doing just fine outdoors. I wouldn't use it for probably a bird bath or anything like that. I think if it was underwater, it would break down a little bit more. You can see I'm going in here and just pushing some up against the edges. I'm not putting my fingers in there because, it's hot. It's 160 degrees, right? And you can kind of take this and paint it around if you need to, if you wanted to paint it up the edges to turn all of the edges of your ornament black, you could do that as well. I think I did that with this guy here in a couple places, right? Okay. The smaller and tinier your pieces are, the more patience it's going to take when you're working with them, and the adhesive could rise up above them. So if you're working with teeny tiny pieces, I might recommend working on the hot plate as you put them in place and then moving them away. So I'm not going to work right on the hot plate, and the reason for that is because it gets a little messy. When you put your pieces down and the adhesive is wet, then it's sticky, so things will move around. If, however, you give it a little bit of time to set up, then you don't have to worry so much about that because it's not going to be wet and sticky anymore. And you don't have to necessarily worry totally about filling any holes that are in there. There are a couple holes here and there, but you don't really have to worry too much about filling them because as you add pieces to your tile here, remember the Groutless Mosaic Adhesive, and I'm exaggerating, we're going to pretend it's this thick, right? And that your glass piece is this thick, right? So as you put your glass piece on top of the mosaic adhesive and you start to melt it, what happens is the weight of this starts to push down the adhesive, and that adhesive has to go somewhere. So as it pushes down, it's disappearing from underneath the piece and coming up around the edges of the piece. So that's how it's kind of looking like your visual grout, right? If you're pushing down on your pieces, that's going to help to expel even more of the adhesive. So say you have transparent pieces that you want to see and you're putting them on black adhesive, which I will be doing here shortly. We'll see how well it works with the lid being a little textured slightly, right? And I've got some kind of olive green pieces that I'm going to work with. Now, normally I do not design this way. I had another lid that was the right size, and I was still getting everything set up, and I just decided that I'd pick and choose my pieces and put them together. This took me all of 5 minutes to figure out what I was going to do. So once I kind of figured everything out, I just left it because the lid I'm using is going to be the exact same size. So the heat has dissipated, the piece is cooled down, I can start transferring these pieces over. So normally, like I said, I would just cut the pieces and put them in place. Now I've got this fun little bauble that kind of broke on me. No big deal, a mosaic is just broken glass. So I'm gonna put it together in this mosaic, and then it will be glued together and it'll be fine and nobody will know the difference. So I've got that piece there, and then I had these mirrors that I was gonna put in there. Now you can use tweezers if you want. Don't get too persnickety about the placement of all these pieces until you start to heat set the piece. We just want to get everything about where you want it to be. When you start to heat set the piece, the adhesive has turned to liquid and is a layer underneath the piece of the tile or the glass that you've got there. So you're going to push down to push that adhesive out, and the piece might wiggle around a little bit. So you don't need to worry about it being too exact initially. Once we start heating, that's when we start to get really, really exact and kind of move everything. Just kind of nudge it into place, wiggle it around, and push it into the adhesive, right? Okay, so there's the first little bit. I'm going to keep going, putting my pieces in here. So I picked some pieces based on the colors of the guy in the little eye in the middle, right? And sneak these guys in here. If you've got textured glass, you want to keep the textured side up if you can. If you've got plenty of adhesive under there and you're not too concerned about whether or not, like, if the piece isn't transparent or isn't translucent, then if it's opaque, you don't have to worry about pushing all the adhesive out from underneath it. If it is not opaque, then you do have to worry about pushing the adhesive out from underneath it, unless you don't mind if it changes colors or if it stays a little dark. There are some colors that you can use that are wispies that have a little bit of clear and white and other colors in them. And one of my favorites, I want to say it was like a mimosa or sunset coral, or I don't know, it was a very fabulous name. It sounded very relaxing. But anyway, this color was a wispy white and clear with kind of a tangerine and yellow swirl going on. And when I used it with the No Days Groutless on a mirror that I did, it turned colors. It turned colors to this beautiful kind of stony color. It's really gorgeous. So it ended up looking more like granite or marble or something. So you can play around with the groutless and get different effects. Typically, the groutless is going to show up a little bit underneath your pieces if they are transparent or translucent. We just call this kind of a sexy romantic look that it gives those pieces. They end up having kind of a smoky look to them. Oops, turned that one on its side. You could put it on its side if you wanted to, but I don't want it on its side for this piece. So just making sure that it's not. Getting all these pieces in place. It really doesn't take very long. The actual figuring out of the design is usually what takes the longest. And I typically try not to think too hard about it, especially with this project. The materials are like minuscule. You've got upcycled jar lids. The jar lids are free. Just a tiny bit of wire. The groutless, that comes in sheets that are plenty big. One sheet, you could get 16 ornaments out of that, plus some, because all the scrap pieces you could add in there too. So maybe we'll call it 17 ornaments. Anyway, that's a lot of ornaments. That's like, and then the rest of it's all scrap glass. And look at how tiny these pieces are. You don't necessarily even have to cut new pieces. I have buckets that lie around that look like this. These are all the pieces that I've used from previous projects, and a lot of tiny pieces, and they are ready to be used in this project. So I don't even have to break out sheets of glass. This is like super simple. Probably have most of the materials at home. You might not have the No Days Groutless if you haven't tried it yet. When you order No Days products, for the most part. I haven't gotten the fusing samples packaged up yet. I'm going to get some thin fuse samples out soon. But when you order the mosaic products and sometimes the fusing products, I will throw in samples of various products that I have. So sometimes you get a little extra goodie and it's the No Days Groutless, or it's the No Days Mosaic Adhesive film, or it's the No Days Mosaic Mesh. And I hope that you enjoy playing with those and looking at these videos and getting inspired. And, you know, if you don't do mosaics and you're a fuser, maybe you want to try and use some of your fused glass creations in mosaics and see how you like it. Anyway, there's lots of videos on the YouTube channel that will show you how to use the project or how to use the products. There's some really old ones that show you how to use the products quick and easy, like so that you don't have to watch me working on a project for, you know, some of those videos are 2 hours long because they're New Day studio sessions. I just share everything that I can with you. So there are various length videos. They're nice, short and sweet ones. This is how you do it. Get started. And then there are some that are a little bit longer that help you get inspired, right? All right, so we're going to take this and we are going to move it over to the hot plate. We're going to stick it there for a moment and let it get all happy. And I'm just going to let you watch it kind of see if you can't just see the adhesive when it starts to get a little melty. This is a great project, like I said, to do with kids, to do with family. And you don't have to limit yourself to just doing the jar lids. You can also use bezels. And I have some bezels in the No Days store. I'm working on getting some of these little baubles and bits uploaded as well. But you can use jewelry bezels and make quick and easy jewelry as well. My model over here has some lovely dichroic jewelry on using the No Days Groutless Mosaic Adhesive. All right, so let's look at this over here. So remember what I was saying, as it starts to heat, you'll be able to push down and wiggle on these pieces. So I don't know if you can see, I think you can see them wiggling, but they are pushing down into the adhesive. So that adhesive is gonna get pressed out, and I'm expecting that the olive pieces on the edge will probably not go totally transparent, but you know, maybe. We'll find out. If they stay dark, not the end of the world. Whoops. All right. So sometimes you're going to get adhesive on the end of your tools. If you wait for it to dry up, you can just kind of pull it off like that. If you have a paper towel, you can always use the paper towel to wipe it off too. But you just want to make sure that all of the pieces are pushed down into the adhesive and that the extra adhesive is getting pressed out from underneath everything. So this nice big piece over here, I'm going to turn my tweezers upside down and push down on it. See how it kind of moves around a little bit? Oh, if you don't have one of these little candle holders, like I said, you can use an oven. You might want to use a cookie sheet and put these pieces in the oven on the cookie sheet. Now, if you're doing that, of course, you're going to have to wait until the pieces come out of the oven so you can move everything around. And that's okay because the adhesive actually holds onto its heat for a little while, a couple minutes, you know. So you have a couple minutes where you can continue to work. Uh-oh, got a piece that decided to turn up. Let's turn it back down sideways, and there might be like a little lip there. All right. Almost done. So notice I'm just working my way around. I'm just pressing down on all the pieces to make sure that everything is in the glue, because if nothing, you know, if something isn't being held by the glue, well then it's not going to stay. Those little pieces look like they might have some problems, but they seem like they've got covered with glue all over. All right, so that is so beautiful. That eye just turned such a beautiful color with the black behind it. Okay, so I'm going to move that from off of this tray and let it cool down. And guess what? As soon as this guy cools down, he is finished. I'm just going to move him back over here. And while we're working on this, I have some time to kind of move things around, right? Because it holds onto its heat for a bit. So if things kind of moved out of the way or aren't quite where I want them to be, I can move them around a bit. If you see any bald spots in your adhesive, you can take little strips of the adhesive. You can take and cut little strips like this. I don't have any here, but just in case you did, cut a little strip of that. And if you've done any soldering, this is kind of like soldering with adhesive, right? That's kind of what I call it. And of course, you'll want it to be on the hot tray still. But you can just take this and you can feed it into anywhere that has those gaps. And then that'll fill those gaps right up. That is it. I could do more if you wanted me to, but really, that's kind of it. I'll try and answer any questions that maybe I missed in the comment section of the video. And until next time, we'll see you. And hopefully this has helped you and inspired you to have some fun over the holiday seasons with your family. Maybe I can talk long enough so that I can hold that. It's a little bit hot still. But yeah, you know, imagine, I really do want to do several of these with just little bits of mirror, maybe little pops of color, but a lot of mirror, because look at how sparkly that gets. And could you imagine all of these dangling? You could also do, instead of just one hanger, if you put another set of hangers over here, you could do a string of ornaments, and that would be really cool. I think you could even glue something to the backside if you wanted to, but I don't mind the kind of the shiny backside. You know, if you took, say, I've got some mazzetta, these were olives, could take and I could actually make a little olive or olive branch even in there. Be clever with it. We've got Mrs. Renfro's salsa. Maybe I make a taco. Who knows? Anyway, your imagination is the limit. Have fun with this project. And until next time, we will see you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a happy holidays. I'll stick this up on YouTube so everybody can watch it a little bit later. It might be slightly edited to get rid of some of those spots where I wasn't saying anything. But you can find this product at nodaysadhesives.com. You can also find this at your local retailer or distributors. If you head to the website, our retail partners are there, or our distributors, I guess. Retail partners and distributors that sell online are on the website, so you can find those folks and where they might be if you say are ordering a whole bunch of things and want to consolidate your shipping prices, right? So yeah, once again, have a great evening, and we will see you next time.